Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Lion's Den. Today we speak with Nick Jain, who is the CEO of Ideascale. And Ideascale is a really cool company. What they do is they basically created a software tool that enables innovation within different companies. And so what this means is it's a tool that allows you to sort of crowdsource your employees, your customers, or even a larger environment and pull the best innovative ideas out of that group and then bubble the best ones to the top so that you can action them. So it's a really cool approach to bringing more innovation within your organization. And what I really like about it is if you have a company with less than 100 employees, they give the software away for free to you. So definitely give this one a listen. Beyond the idea scale stuff, we have a great wide-ranging conversation. Nick is a really smart guy, Harvard Business School. He's a mathematician. He plays poker for fun. I mean, just a really cool guy. So you're going to enjoy this one. Nick, welcome to the Lion's Den.
Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Of course, of course. So I was on your LinkedIn earlier, and I see that you have a fantastic Ivy League resume. All right. So I see Dartmouth undergrad. I see Harvard Business School. So when did you become a degenerate gambler?
More or less always, right? I've been playing poker aggressively for about 8 or 9 years. I wouldn't quite call myself degenerate because A, I'm a winning gambler, and B, I know when to stop, and C, like I play for fun, right? I'm good enough to make a side living off of it if I wanted. I don't want that because that would be a pretty boring life versus, having a real job.
Yeah. So is it all like online poker stuff? Do you actually compete in tournaments in person or
So
what?
I played low stakes online for a while, but that's really not fun for me because again, that's great if you want to make money. That wasn't my goal. My goal is to much more social and competitive. So I mostly
Hmm.
play in casinos. Usually, when my wife allows me, Friday and Saturday nights, both cash games and kind of low and mid stakes tournaments.
Okay. Are there casinos in Philadelphia?
Yeah, so Pennsylvania has a ton of casinos all over the place.
Oh,
There's
okay.
two in Philadelphia, one about an hour outside Philadelphia, and then a bunch in kind of scattered throughout the state of Pennsylvania.
Got it. Very cool. And I know you were so at Dartmouth. You majored in a few things, but one of those things was math. Do a lot of math majors go the poker route? Is that kind of what started it?
So yes, but yes. So it's actually funny. Like if people think of poker, they think of like a gruff 60-year-old Texan man, and that's very much the stereotype of poker was for a long time. Somebody who kind of raised himself up by bootstraps, salt of the earth. And then somewhere around the early 2000s, the entire world of poker went a revolution where people realized, wait, there's just a ton of math in poker, and if you're good at math, you become very good at poker. So right around the early 2000s, the entire game shifted. The type of person wasn't like a scrappy high school dropout, gun wielding Texan, but rather people who had like PhDs in math. Right? There was a woman, I think she was like the top 3 player in the world. She had a PhD in astrophysics. And so nowadays a lot of the elite poker players are mathematicians or have a very strong either mathematical aptitude or training. And even the low level players, if you want to be any good, you have to understand a fair bit of mathematics, even if you don't have that, fancy degree in the background.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy how that shifted. And I've never really gotten into it. I mean, I play a little bit with friends every now and then, but I have never studied enough to understand the odds or anything like that. So I'm just basically one of those people nobody really wants to be at the table because you never
No,
know
I
what's going
would
to happen.
love for you if you were at the table with me but you'll be at such a disadvantage. Well, actually, I wouldn't. I hate playing against people who don't understand the game because then it's not fun. I'm playing for a competitive atmosphere, and I've just have such a huge advantage on someone who doesn't understand the basic math of poker. So it's
Yeah.
less fun for me. Actually, it's probably more fun for the average player because you're a fish, and they would love to take your money.
Exactly. So it sounds. What do you like most about it? It sounds like you're really in it for the competition aspect of it. Is that right?
I think, yeah, there's 3 things I like about it. Number 1 is, I like that it is social, right? You're meeting people from all walks of life. There could be a CEO across the table. There could be someone who's been homeless. There could be, a woman with 3 kids, an empty nester, right? Like it's a very diverse crowd, and I love just chatting with people, having drinks, etc. Number 2, I love the competitive aspect. I like winning in almost everything in life. I like competing in everything in life. Even if I suck at it, I love the adrenaline rush you get from competing. Um, And then number three, I like kind of calculated risk taking. Right. There's a part of my brain that's wired towards trying to like figure out how to make good decisions and then getting that, that endorphin rush when you realize you made the right decision.
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever play blackjack? I would assume I have played blackjack. That's way easier, but it is still this kind of the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
still math based. There's cards on the table. You calculate the odds of what the next card's going to be. I mean, what do you think of blackjack?
So I know how to play blackjack. I've never really played it because it doesn't hit
Mhm.
those first two parts, right? It's not as social a
Mm,
game as poker. You're really
yeah,
playing against the house, and it's again, you're not competing against other people, so it doesn't quite tweak my brain as much as poker does. Because again, I want the social aspect.
got it. Any other type of betting? Online
Uh,
sports betting, super
no,
popular right
no,
now.
no. I don't watch enough professional sports to keep in touch of who's quarterbacking whom or how far in the series the Phillies are. In addition, if you want to be a good sports bettor, I don't know if you've ever seen the John Oliver episode on it. The ones who are actually winning on the sports betting platforms, they're running insanely complex analyses. It's a full-time job for them. I'm not going
Mm.
to be sitting calculating the wind velocity at Wrigley Field. Not, so I might enjoy that, but I've got a wife, I've got a job, I've got other things in life that I want to pursue.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. All right, so I'm kind of curious. I'll shift gears a little bit. I'm kind of curious about your upbringing because I was reading that you were raised in India in a small city by your grandmother. So, what was that like, and when did you reach a point where you ended up moving to the United States? Like, how does that even happen?
Sure. So I have a very weird upbringing. My parents immigrated from India to Canada somewhere in the 1980s, and they had me, and they realized, look, we are, blue collar immigrants. We can't afford to raise a child. So they actually made an incredibly, incredibly difficult, heart wrenching decision to send me across the world to live with my grandmother in India. You can imagine as a young couple giving up your child, right? Who you love, but you realize you can't take care of them. So up until the age of 5, I was raised by my grandmother in the small city called Gwalior in India. Um, I had half an hour of running water in the morning, half an hour in the evening. As a 3-year-old, it was my job to fill up the tank of water, which you can imagine is a tremendous amount of responsibility as a 3-year-old, right? Um, and then at age 5, my parents had, progressed enough in their kind of economic stability in Canada, and I was old enough where I could, attend kindergarten, so they wouldn't need daycare during the day, that they brought me back to Canada. And I grew up in Canada from the age of 5 till about 18, normal middle class high school upbringing in a little town called Langley, which is, I think, the horse capital of Canada. So nice little farm town. Um, Phenomenal, upbringing. Canada is a wonderful place, and Langley is a wonderful place to grow up. Really, my first time in the United States was when I showed up for college. I got into a really good college in the United States, bought a plane ticket, and that was the first time I was really in the U.S.
Wow, that's cool. Do you like it here? I mean, you've stayed, so like this
Yeah.
is where you're going to be for the long term. You think?
Yeah, so look, I'm married here. I have a job here. I've tried to I've been here now nearly 20 years. Became a U.S. citizen for the first time just under last November after 19 years or 18 years of living here. So that was a
Wow.
long, long process, a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
So look, I'm tethered. I like the United States. I've been here. I've fallen in love, built a life here. What I love about the United States is kind of two or three things. Number one, setting aside the politics of it, I'm a firm believer in the American dream. There's a reason why people from all over the world come to the United States, and that is because you are able to create a lot of things here, and there's support for creating lots of things. And it doesn't really matter that much what you look like or where you're from or what accent you have. I have a bit of a Canadian accent, but I can still be successful here, and I think that's really cool. Number two, I love kind of the optimism of America, right? Other countries may have different attitudes towards life. Americans are eternally optimistic, even setting aside the riled up politics that are going on. We're still optimistic about what the future holds for this country, and I love that. That's really unique about this country, and so I'm excited to be here and build a life here.
Yeah, I love it too. I'm actually not there right now. I'm in the Caribbean. But
So
grew up.
I do wish that we were a little bit warmer here in the Northeast than we are, but that's a life choice that we've made.
That's right. That's right. Um, all right. So I'm looking at your LinkedIn page at a couple different things here. I'm seeing sort of early career, some time at McKinsey as a consultant, Bain Capital, private equity, Greenlight Capital, which I think is a hedge fund. So,
Yeah.
what was going on? You were sort of dipping your toe into all those different fields. What were you trying to figure out at that point in your career?
Sure. So I think throughout my career, like when I left college, I think I was smart enough to know that I knew nothing about anything, right? Like I'd learned some really cool theoretical math skills that's not very useful in the real world, right? No one's asking you to prove how black holes work, at least not where I work. Um, so I think investing was a really McKinsey and investing companies were really interesting places to go because you learn so much and you get to be in the room with really important people and learn from them, right? At the age of 22, I was in the same room as the CEOs of billion-dollar corporations. Now, I wasn't talking to them. I wasn't like, I wasn't standing up there telling them I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, but got to be in the room from them and learn from them, right? So I got to see all these extraordinary leaders, some very good and some very bad, and was able to discern like, okay, here's how to run a company, here's not how to run a company, here's an industry I'm interested in, here's an industry I'm not interested in. So I learned a lot during those kind of the first 10 years of my career. And that was the same when I was at Bain Capital. I got to invest in a bunch of different companies, see a bunch of different industries, see good leaders, bad leaders, as well as leaders who I would want to emulate because my style naturally matches theirs, and leaders who I like, they're good, but I can't be who they are because who I am as a person is a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had a very similar experience because out of college, I joined Capgemini. So, and I was in New York as well. So, working for billion-dollar companies, consulting, and I was in those rooms too. And it is a little bit scary. It's especially scary when you like do all this work and create an analysis and you feel so good about it, and then you finally present it to that leader who's 8 levels above you, and they just like brush it off the table. They're like, I don't care about this.
But what is it? You spend 1,000 hours making a PowerPoint deck and it's, discarded after 15 minutes, right? That's pretty normal.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So then I'm fast forwarding a little bit on your LinkedIn page, and I'm seeing a couple really interesting things, I think. So you were the CFO, and what I'm seeing is like two different 1 year stints at two different companies where you were the CFO. So what was that? What were those engagements like? What was the purpose of that?
Sure. So I was at Fusion Transport. My title was CFO, but I also co-ran. Sorry, let me back up. Fusion Transport was $100 million revenue. Is $100 million plus revenue trucking and logistics company. So warehouses, big heavy trucks moving around the country. My title there was CFO, but I also co-ran most aspects of operations, sales, and marketing. I helped build a sales team from scratch there, marketing, operations, analytics, etc. That was a really cool experience because I'd never worked in a trucking like heavy or in a heavy industry where there's big pieces of equipment where you have to actually worry about safety, right? Like if you're working in a white collar office setting, you're not worried about heavy equipment falling down on someone, right? Unless they do something
Yeah.
really stupid with the Xerox machine. Um, Whereas in trucking, I remember there was one night I got a call saying like, hey, a forklift had rammed into one of the big rackings in the warehouse. And while nothing had fallen over, now this racking is in danger of collapsing and that could kill someone. And that's a very stark realization when you're a young executive realizing, hey, I'm not just dealing with numbers, but people's lives here. And I can actually protect people's lives. So that was a really cool learning experience for me because it was just such a different industry than many of the other places in which I'd worked, where I was working in an office setting with only white collar professionals or professionals. Um, the shoe company, again, my title was CFO, but I also ran marketing there and helped a little bit with operations. Um, that was a different experience for an altogether different reason. That was a company. The company was Kicks. We were a young startup. I was part of a 3-person executive team, and we were renting really high-end sneakers. So think like Yeezys and Air Jordans,
Mm.
those sorts of things. So really expensive sneakers to an audience because the founders had realized there was this market need that, hey, there's all these people who have collections of fancy shoes that they're only wearing once or twice a year. Why not rent instead of buy, right? Like you should only own something that you're using every day, like a refrigerator. Terrible idea to rent your refrigerator. Great idea to rent a pair of shoes that you're wearing once a year. So that was cool because I learned an entirely different part of the world and got to exercise an entirely different part of my brain. So fashion is much more about emotional appeal. It is much more about kind of the marketing side is much more data driven and analytics because it's a rich field. So I got to develop an entirely cool new set of skills for me personally, but it was very fun to work in an industry where everyone's a personality, right? Like sneakers are all about athletes and musicians and artists, and that's a very different culture again from the one which I'd spent much of my professional career in.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you have any like awesome sneakers that you got out of that experience?
Not anymore. I got to wear a couple of cool sets of sneakers while I was with them. I rented from them. Obviously, you
Hmm.
gotta you gotta eat your own cooking. I've
Yeah.
obviously returned them since I've left. I don't
Yeah.
think that it would be fair for me to keep a $500 or $1,000 pair of sneakers that belongs to my employer.
That's true. The rental nature of it. Yeah, I remember, so one of the clients that I had for a long time was Brooks Brothers in New York, the clothing company there. And we had such a good discount there that I ended up, by the time I left, I had like 10 different suits and all these crazy shoes and, gator skin and all kinds of insane stuff. And then when my wife and I started traveling, we just like sold all of it. So I don't have any of it anymore. It's all gone. But I love those discounts. I love those discounts. All right, let's shift one more time. So now we're going to Ideascale. All right, so this is the company where you are serving as a CEO. Did you found the company? I
I did
wasn't clear
not
on that.
know. The
Okay,
company's been around about 15 years. I've been here 2 years and was brought in as a professional CEO.
okay. So they brought you in as a CEO. I think you started around mid 2022. What does Ideascale do?
Sure. So we are the largest innovation software company in the world. And what that means is if you think about like a finance department has an accounting system, right? A sales and marketing department has a CRM or marketing system like a HubSpot or Salesforce. If you're a warehouse company, you have what's called a warehouse management system, a WMS. All these functions within a company have software systems that support the teams to be function more effectively. Turns out large organizations over the last decade or two have realized number one, they're not actually super innovative, and all they've been doing is really buying, doing M&A to acquire creativity or innovation. And so they realize they need to become more innovative. So a lot of large organizations, big government agencies, nonprofits, private sector organizations have created innovation departments or R&D departments, even in non-traditional fields such as manufacturing or warehousing. And in those innovation departments, they've realized, hey, we're just a bunch of people with no tools. It's like sending a carpenter to a job site and not giving him or her a hammer, a saw, etc. And so our software really caters to any large organization that wants to innovate more effectively. It helps you innovate faster, better, and more systematically. And how it does that is it says, look, there's all these great ideas inside your ecosystem. Ecosystem could be employees, it could be customers, shareholders, whatever. Let's help you collect all of those ideas from all of these employees or your ecosystem, put them in a centralized location, rank them. So upvote and downvote them in a very social way, kind of like TikTok. And bring the best and help you then pick the best ranked ideas and turn them into reality. So you can almost think of it like I like describing part of our software as the TikTok of ideas. So instead of the funny dance video floating to the top, it's the great idea, the great new product idea, the great new manufacturing process idea, the great new company mascot or marketing campaign idea that now doesn't have to come from 10 senior executives, but can come from the combined intelligence of your entire ecosystem.
Gotcha. Okay. And so these ideas that sort of end up bubbling up, are they like incremental innovations or are they like groundbreaking innovations? Like how do most people use the tool?
Both. It entirely depends on the type of organization, right? Like a manufacturing organization typically is doing much more kind of incremental process improvements. A technology company or software company, we use our own software. I'll use an example. So we use our own software to figure out how we should make our software better. And we've discovered both incremental improvements, like, hey, you should move this button here and make this button or make this text bigger. So those are very incremental to really new, cool, fun, like groundbreaking product ideas that this is an entirely new product and we should go build it. And so I see my customers using both ways, right? We work with some very big pharmaceutical companies, and I've seen them both to figure out, hey, how do we market this new or this drug better? To hey, let's actually go develop a new drug with some of these ideas and go save more lives.
Yeah. So and so you mentioned that, some of these really large organizations they'll put together an innovation team and then they'll be like, all right, what do we do now? What tools do we have? So is this do you find that your customers are sort of those larger organizations that have an innovation team already, or are sometimes companies coming to you and saying, we don't even have an innovation team. We know we need to innovate. How do we even start this?
Sure. So both. If somebody's already founded the first step in becoming more innovative is realizing you need to become more innovative, right? And some companies who do that, they often either form an innovation team and hire a chief innovation officer, a VP of innovation, or they can come to us and say, hey, we don't know how to start, right? We're able to help you on both ends. Now, our specialty is we're not going to help you construct an innovation team and go out and hire a VP of innovation. Go hire a recruiting firm for that. We can help you design that team because we have some expertise there. But we're most helpful when you are ready to when you already have an innovation team and want tools for them, or even if you don't have a formal innovation team, you just want an innovation piece of software, because you don't need to have an innovation team to use innovation software, in the same way that you don't necessarily need to have a fully dedicated sales and marketing team to need a CRM. But as a company, you'll still benefit from a CRM because it's a centralized place to store all your customer data.
Got it. Okay. Do the employees of the company, do they end up getting like rewarded for their ideas? I mean, what's the incentive for them to actually input different innovative ideas into the tool?
So that's a great question. So there's I'll start with a theory and I'll offer the tactical advice, right? There's four main reasons why people in life, in anything in life, are motivated to do anything. I call them the 4 Gs. First, gold, the money, right? They want monetary compensation. Second is guts. So just to show you can do it. You don't care if anybody else knows. It's to know that you yourself know you do it. That's why people run like ultra Ironmans or ultra marathons. It's for their own pride. Number 3, for the glory, to let everyone else know you did something awesome, that you are that awesome, right? And number 4, the good. So gold, guts, glory, and the good, like the common good for the benefit of mankind, or humankind, I should say. And so depending on your organization, you have a different, and depending on the individual, they're motivated by some different mix of these 4 characteristics. And so you want to incentivize people based on what motivates them. If you're working at a hedge fund or in Goldman Sachs, there may be a little bit more towards the gold orientation, a little bit less towards the good orientation. Some of our clients one of my biggest clients is a major nonprofit food bank. Right? Many of the people there are doing so because obviously they want a job, they want to be paid, but really they care about benefiting humankind. So the way you motivate or incentivize them is different. So we do encourage all of our software does allow you to build in an incentive system, both monetary and otherwise, but we really encourage our clients to think very thoughtfully about what motivates their ecosystem. Again, could be employee base, could be customer base, and to tap into that in a way that really encourages and rewards people for being part of that idea community.
Interesting. Okay. And so once all those ideas, I want to learn more about this tool.
Yeah.
So once those ideas are starting to populate in and people are feeling incentivized and there's like a drive to actually put the ideas in, you mentioned there were upvotes, downvotes. All right. So sort of the best ideas from a crowdsourcing perspective bubble to the top. Then what happens? Does the tool help you action those ideas, or like how does it actually go from idea into implementation?
Yeah, so there's a mini project management tool built into the software that helps you take an idea from hey, it's just a crazy idea, to this has been vetted, this has received a certain number of critical votes or critical comments so that it's interesting. Hey, it's been vetted by a finance team, it's been vetted by a science team, because some ideas sound great on paper, but then some scientists tell you, hey, this violates the laws of physics, right? So each organization can decide what its phasing process is to how do they take an idea from just being an idea to actually implementation. You can decide those phases, and you can, within the software, move an idea through phases, just as with any project management software. And those phases, now we're getting a little technical into the software, but any organization can totally customize it to fit their process for how they make projects into reality.
Got it. Okay, cool. And I was on your website. There's some pretty big name customers on there. So let's maybe talk about a few of those. You can tell me a little bit about the project or whatever you're able to tell me.
Sure. So I won't go too specifically into what our customers use us for, because that's obviously their intellectual property.
Sure.
But yeah, we have some major customers like the Pfizer, Comcast, NASCAR, Doctors Without Borders, major global U.S. Post Office, Transportation Safety Authority, U.S. Coast Guard. So public sector, private sector, nonprofit. Large organizations love us because we built a software solution that doesn't break. So it's enterprise grade software, super secure. So if you have sensitive data in there, it doesn't get stolen. So all the stuff that like large organizations love. The software just works, it's easy, and it's secure. Those are kind of the 3 things almost any large organization cares about: easy, secure, useful.
Right.
So I'll give kind of two examples of how our software has been used in practice. One, I'll give a fun example from us. Then second, I'll give a more serious example from an anonymized client. So a fun example from us is we realized about 6 months ago, we didn't actually have a company mascot. Wouldn't it be fun if we had a cute, like a cute company mascot? And so we created a public campaign that anyone in the world, whether you're an employee, a customer, a random student somewhere, you can contribute ideas for what should be an Ideascale's new mascot. So we ran the campaign for about 3 or 4 months. People voted. Lots of people submitted ideas, including I submitted 3. 2 of my ideas sucked and they were downvoted to the bottom, which is great to see, by the way. People feel comfortable enough to say the CEO's idea is terrible. One of my ideas made it to the final 3 round. And ultimately, so this was a fun campaign. And ultimately, a really new employee from South Africa, his idea won. And we came up with Sparky the Idea Pup, which is a really cute Shiba dog wearing a cape, like a Superman cape, and carrying a light or having a light bulb on his chest. So Sparky the Idea Pup that's a fun one, right? That's that we use that ourselves. A more serious example is...
Wait a minute. Before we go to the more serious example, what was your idea that made it to the final 3?
My idea that made it to the final 3 was a man, like an old man, or like an old man wearing a Japanese style like cone hat with a staff with a light bulb at the top.
Like a wizard.
That was co-generated with generative AI tools, by the way.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So, okay. All right. So the more serious idea.
So, by the way, the one that made it to the bottom was just a giant light bulb, which everyone hated. A giant light bulb with eyes and a face, which it was terrible. It was. So look, a more serious example is. So I work with what's a good example? So I work with a huge U.S. government federal agency. I won't name them just to keep them anonymous. They help with employment is their kind of core mandate. And what they were discovering was, look, we have this large portion of disabled people in the United States that are either physically disabled or have mental disabilities that prevent them from fully engaging in the workforce. And that's kind of understandable from an employer's perspective. You don't want to necessarily hire an employee who isn't able to perform to the same standards as others. But how do we solve? That's a really difficult problem to solve, right? How do you get people employed and engaged in the workforce who may have different capabilities than what employers are looking for, particularly around disabilities? So they started an Ideascale campaign asking employers, hey, how do we, what sort of programs can we create that will either incentivize you, compensate you, or allow you to change your job descriptions in a way that it is accessible and you can actually hire people who have different abilities or lesser abilities. And that's something really cool, right? That's impactful because you have, depending on how you count it, somewhere between 10 to 40 million working age Americans who have some sort of disability that prevents them from being employed or gainfully involved in the workforce. And it's really difficult if you think about it. You can't go ask, 100, there's probably 150,000 meaningful employers in the United States. It's impossible to go talk to every single one of them or talk to their chief human resource officers. But it's very easy in a software system to say like, hey, we're just going to ask everyone, come participate, comment on each other's ideas, share your ideas for how we solve this really difficult problem that is difficult, that's bad for employers because that's bad for these disabled people, and it's bad for society because we have people who aren't able to participate in society. Like, that's a really difficult, meaty problem. No single person is going to solve it, but the cumulative intelligence of 100,000 employers, of millions of Americans, that can help you solve the problem in a meaningful way.
Interesting. Okay, so I guess what I wasn't really getting until now, because I was thinking it's like this internal tool where you're tapping internal ideas.
Some companies use it just internally with their employee base, or even a subset, or you can use it with like as small a team as you want, right? You can use it just with 5 people on an engineering team. You can use it with 1,000 people or 100,000 people in your organization, or you can open it up to the world. So my mascot campaign was open to the entire world. Anyone in the world could have participated.
And so are you just sort of like marketing it through social media or whatever? Like, hey, we're trying to do a new like, how does that work? Does everybody get a login into the tool?
Yeah. So you, for example, our internal use of the school is of the tool is you go to ideas.ideascale.com. That's publicly accessible. Now there's some private campaigns that we don't show the world, which are only accessible to our employees, but there's 2 campaigns, the now closed mascot campaign and a product improvement campaign. So generally, customers market their own campaigns. Once they join Ideascale and they're building a community, they're responsible for marketing the community. If they want, and they're running public campaigns, we'll obviously market it for them. So if you go to our website, ideascale.com, you'll see 8 or 9 campaigns where our customers had said, hey, this is a public campaign. Can you help market for us and get the critical mass of members joined up to the community? As with any kind of social network, you need people participating before the network becomes useful. So we, teach customers how to build that social network effectively internally, or we provide a little bit of support entirely for free by posting it on our socials, by putting on our website here. Hey, here's a public campaign that you may want to participate in.
Interesting. Okay, so for the example you gave with the Department of Labor or whatever we're calling that, they created the campaign within the tool. Then because they have the contact information of all these different employers, they probably just emailed them or something. And exactly. So then all those employers had a link, and they click the link and it takes them to some sort of web page where they can submit ideas and upvote and downvote.
Upvote, downvote, comment. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow. That is awesome. Yeah. Super powerful. I could think of a lot of
for ideas, right? It works. Setting aside all the security parameters and protecting of IP and all the fancy bells and whistles, at its core, it's a social network for ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and there are a lot of companies out there with a lot of different customers, and they're sort of focused on how do I get Google reviews, or how do I get an NPS survey filled out. This may be almost a more interesting way to get customer feedback in a way that can help you improve.
Yeah. The funny thing is, right? Everyone likes talking, right? Everyone likes sharing their opinion and talking your ear off. If they dislike something about their product, or like something about your product, or have a good idea, they would love to tell you this. There's just not a good way. Let's imagine you wanted to give an idea to the CEO of McDonald's, or a senior, it doesn't have to be the CEO. How do you call up McDonald's and tell them, hey, I have a good idea for a menu item, or hey, your sauce is kind of tasting funky this week? There's not a good way, aside from suing them for something bad. Software like ours, and I think we're best in class at what we do. Software like ours allows a company it lowers the gap, or decrease the gap between the decision makers at an organization and the people who have the great ideas, whether that be your customers or your employees. Because right now, the number of levels between you and the McDonald's CEO or their decision-making body is probably 10 levels, and you are never going to get access. It's impossible to be heard unless you happen to go viral on social media. Our software makes it possible for impactful ideas to make it to the CEO's desk very, very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the case of McDonald's, it's interesting because, before they put any new menu item out, I'm sure they do focus groups and stuff like that, but this is a very easy way for them to do a focus group of the entire population. Anybody who's ever gone to McDonald's. Yeah. And it's hey, which of these 5 menu items, or here's one where you can just input your own that you make up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which one
you can do both, right? We more encourage you to get customer feedback rather than run a survey on our platform, because there are, great survey platforms out there. Question Pro, which is a Question Pro, Survey Monkey. There's a bunch of these survey platforms out there. So again, we can do that. That's not what we're best in class at, though.
Gotcha. And then for the disgruntled employee who feels like they can, never get what they want to say up to the CEO, this is a means for them to do that. But it's also a means, if they submit something and it gets downvoted, it's a means for them to be humbled and realize, maybe that idea should never have made it to the CEO, and I was disgruntled for no reason.
Yeah, it also degruntles them in a positive way, right? Because if they're actually able to voice their concerns or ideas, people just feel a lot better when you're heard. One of the main benefits of going to a therapist, to draw a little bit of a weak analogy, but I think it's relevant, is one of the big benefits of going to a therapist is you just feel good having spoken to someone or having been heard. And software like ours helps you really improve specifically for employees and customers. It is proven to improve morale, because customers employees finally feel heard in a forum where they know someone's going to listen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to start. This is awesome. I want to start wrapping up a little bit here, but there is a lingering question I have. We've mentioned a bunch of different really large organizations. That's kind of what we're circling around, it sounds like, with your main customer base. What about smaller businesses? I mean, I work with companies that are, 2 to 15 million in revenue. I mean, is there a way for them to use this tool?
Sure. So firstly, yeah, my paying customers tend to be large organizations because we're a large, expensive enterprise grade software. Our software is completely free for organizations that are less than 100 people. Just go to ideascale.com, click get started free. So your customers, your clients, anyone listening to this podcast, if you're below 100 people, whether you're like an individual with a Gmail address or a mid-sized organization, go to my website. Software's completely free. That's kind of just a practical thing. But secondly, I want to draw like an important principle. Innovation is important for anyone, right? If you want to stay relevant, you have to keep innovating, because if you're not innovating, your competitors certainly are. And that's true whether you're a mom and pop hardware store at the corner, whether you're a $5 million software company, whether you're a $50 million shoe company, or a $10 billion pharmaceutical company. And yes, to answer your question directly, our software is useful for mid-sized organizations. We use it ourselves, right? Like, I'm a mid-sized organization with 100 people. I use my software and we derive value from it. That's how we make decisions on how to make our software better. That's where not all the great ideas for Ideascale, but like a large proportion of the great ideas, how we make our product and services better, come from us using our own software.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm definitely going to bring this tool to my clients now that I know that it's free. I love
Totally
having
free.
free.
Not
I
a penny. Not a penny to charge.
Yeah, I love having free tools that I could bring to clients for sure. Cool, man. Nick, great talking to you. Love the idea of Ideascale. It sounds awesome. We'll chat after this about how maybe I can get involved. It sounds really, really cool. Thank you so much for coming on the Lions Den. We will link to your website. We'll link to your LinkedIn page. And again, man, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nico, for having me on your show.